Hello and welcome to Horror Boys. It's a podcast on the internet. I'm Austin, joined as always by...
Yes.
And we are the Horror Boys. And it's not just any old podcast on this old internet. No, my friends. It is a horror movie review podcast specifically, where every week we review a horror movie. I know, crazy. Yeah. That's it. That's the intro. Now I guess to the podcast. Today we are talking about the movie Rubber from 2010. It was directed, written, cinematographied. I don't know the word. I don't know what the word is for that. For like the word for like written and directed. There's no word for that. DP'd by, I guess. We'll go with that. And co-composed by Quentin Dupuis, I believe, or Dupuis, something like that. It's a French name, and I'm trying my best. I looked up a pronunciation, but that was like 2 days ago, and I forgot it. But I did kind of write down like a little cheat sheet, and I think that's what it was.
Nice.
Our other co-composer is Gaspard Auge, I believe. Once again, French name. And I believe that's how it's pronounced.
Ah.
Then we have our makeup, which is done by Akiko Matsumoto. Not a French name. Still think I might have pronounced it right, though.
Maybe.
Maybe not, though. And our special effects were done by Tom Tallman and Valak Sykes.
Ah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So let's that's all like the preamble. Now it's time to hop into the movie itself, where we open with some shots of empty wooden chairs. Before, we see a man holding a bunch of binoculars. The man is credited as the accountant and is played by Jack Plotnick, who is a character actor, most known for a lot of his comedic work. Specifically, like he was a voice actor in Drawn Together, the Comedy Central show. But now it's time for the fun part where Austin gets to bring up stuff I care about, and that's where I recognize him as Deputy Mayor Alan Finch from season 3 of Buffy. Woo, Buffy! His character is really important. Spoiler for Buffy Season 3. His character dies, and I won't tell you how or why, but his character's death really actually changes a lot in the show and is very important and integral to the plot.
Huge spoiler. Jesus.
I'm sorry. I'm spoiling. I believe Season 3 of Buffy would have been 99 was when that season aired. I am sorry for spoiling the 23-year-old season of television and only half spoiling it. Deliberately trying not to completely spoil it. Then we see a car driving up.
Slowly. So slowly.
Yeah, very slowly. Swerving to hit every wooden chair.
Every single one.
In the street.
Yeah. But all seem to just fall apart very easily.
Yeah, totally. Then we see the trunk just opens, and out comes Lieutenant Chad, who is played by Steven Spinella. Of one of the movies he was in was Ravenous, which I'm bringing it up, 1, because it's a horror movie, 2, because he was in that movie alongside Horror Boys alum David Arquette, and I love to bring up the weird other people who were on this, that were on other things. That's my thing. So I gotta bring it up. That was one of the movies he was also in other stuff, but that was the thing that stuck out because of being in it with David Arquette.
We love David Arquette here.
We love David Arquette here. Lieutenant Chad gets a glass of water from the driver, and then gives a speech on how all movies have an element of happens
no reason.
For no reason. How just no reason. It's a big long speech about this. Most of his examples are not actually for no reason. They're literally central to the movie's themes. Like, he picks some, like, the worst possible examples for, like, the point that he wants to make. I will say, at this point in the movie, I was hating that we were watching this movie because at this point I was like, oh, great. It's one of those movies that is happening just for no reason, and it's like, haha, silly, random equals funny, and I was like, oh, no. Spoiler, my opinion might change as we keep talking. But,
oh my god.
But that's what I was thinking. I'm giving you my, in-depth analysis as we are. At this point in the movie, I was like, oh no, this is a Thanksgiving 3. We're trying to be silly for the sake of being silly. Oh, I hate when things try to do that. It doesn't work normally. But yeah. So, then he switches to talking about the reason that happens is because it's an homage to the real world. Wait, sorry, no, I jumped a little far. Sorry. But that's because that movies are based off of, like, reality, and how that all of reality also has elements of no reason. He then lists off a couple other things that are real life things that are for no reason, which are slightly more actually no reason things that can't be explained, but only slightly. Only slightly.
Yeah.
But before then telling the audience that this movie is going to be an homage to no reason, and he dumps out the glass of water on the ground. As the shot then pans back to reveal that there's an audience looking on. What? He was talking to them? That's weird. I will... wait. What? Oh, okay. Sorry. I did in my notes I said the words I will, but I got really confused on why they're there. I will now go through... I lost my place again. What? I guess I... Okay, I will now is what I was supposed to write, but I wrote the word no with a K because I guess my brain in the moment didn't figure out what I was doing, and I was like, yeah, I happens to me sometimes. My brain's really cool. I will now go through our audience members because they're all technically into this shot, and so I'm just going to list off like who's who and like the characters' names and who they're played by before we get into like the actual scene involving them. Yeah. So, let me clear my throat. It's going to be a lot of talking real quick. Now I lost my place again. It's a great episode, guys.
It's going really well.
We have first Man in Wheelchair. That is his credited title. Who is played by Wings Hausen, who was in Tales from the Hood, an episode of Freddy's Nightmares, and was in the movie The Siege of Firebase Gloria with Horror Bois alum Arlie Ermey. So that's cool. Those first two things are, his horror credits, but then he was also in a movie with a horror guy. That's pretty cool, guys.
Oh, that's crazy.
Then we have film buff Ethan, who is played by Ethan Cohen, actually it's Cohen, sorry, who was in Cry Wolf alongside Horror Bois alum Jared Padalecki. Ooh. Then we have film buff Charlie, who is played by Charlie Kuntz of a movie called Haunting of Cell Block 11 was a horror credit I was able to find of his to give reference to. I have no idea what that movie is, but hey, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
We also have Dad, who is played by the late Daniel Quinn of Spiders 2 Breeding Ground. Movie sounded so like crazy that I just wanted to mention it. Then we have Son, who is played by Devin Braca, who was in an episode of the Friends spinoff Joey.
Hey, Joey.
Yeah. Then we have teenager Cindy, who is played by Haley Holmes. Then we have teenager Fiona, who is played by Haley Ram, who, fun fact, played young Jean Grey in X-Men Last Stand, which is a character that in that movie is also played by Horror Bois alum Famke Jensen. That's a weird fact. And now we'll move on.
Oh.
And we also have, she's credited as this. I will refer to her as the woman going forward after this, but her official credit is just Black Woman, and that felt awkward, so I will refer to her. She's also the only adult woman, so I will refer to her as the woman going forward. And she is played by also the late Cecilia Antoinette.
Mm.
The film buffs complain that the chairs were broken because, they could have sat in them. Yeah. And then Cindy asks the accountant if the movie will be in black and white or in color. He does not respond. He just leaves. Yeah. And then Boy is getting bored, and he's worrying if it will be a silent film. The dad tells him not to worry. It's basically that scene. Once again, a lot of these scenes I will have to just kind of condense, but they are well acted and pretty funny. Typically, the dialogue that goes throughout the back and forth with the spectators, I believe, is the official name they're given in the movie, but I refer to them as the audience most of the time in my notes.
And that's fair. We would do that because they are watching.
They are an audience, and they are also spectators. They are an audience of spectators, if you will.
I can say that, yeah. Oh.
The woman points their attention to a dump where we get our opening credits. We end on a title card before we pan down to a tire, which slowly starts to move. This is where I'll bring up one of my, sadly, only fun facts I have for the production of the movie, really, because there's one interview with the director that's in French that's 8 minutes long, and that's the only research I was able to do. Yeah, but one thing that is kind of a fun fact, though, is that all of the tire stuff is practical, or mostly at least. It's most he said. I believe his term was mostly, but they tried to use either puppeting it off screen slightly, or using a remote control version of it. So
that's what it seems like.
Yeah, it is definitely There's no CGI. It's not a fake tire. It's a real tire.
Yeah. That's a tire.
That's a tire, I tell you what. Yeah, he slowly starts to move, and he's shaking sand off before getting right side up. It tries to roll away a few times, falling over before getting its balance and rolling away. The instrumental music is very pretty that starts happening during these scenes. It is...
Yeah.
This is a weird movie to describe to people.
And also, Austin hasn't said anything about it yet, but I think it's worth bringing up that, the cinematography throughout, 90% of this movie is just beautiful, to be honest. I agree. Way better than any the movie Rubber has been.
Yeah, it is. This
wild.
This is the most, art movie we've ever watched, which is weird, because it's the movie Rubber about a killer tire.
Because it's also one of the dumbest movies we've ever watched.
But it is
in
also,
terms of the plot.
It is also pure art, and this is a little bit sooner than I would have brought it up, but I think we're only about 10 minutes in the movie. Around the 15-minute point, I had texted Chris being I can't tell if I love this movie or hate this movie. And that's because this movie, and I feel like that's going to be a lot of people when they watch this. You are either going to love this movie by the end of it, or you're going to hate it. And I respect both opinions because I get it. This movie is weird. This movie is art. But the thing about art is subjective, and sometimes art is not going to work for you, and I can see why it won't work for a giant portion of people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I believe this movie bombed beyond belief. I believe I didn't have it written down, but I want to say when I looked it up on IMDb, it was $500,000 was the budget for this movie, which seems honestly a little high. So maybe those numbers were wrong. But if it was true, the movie only made $100,000, which means it lost $400,000. So I'm hoping that it wasn't that bad for them. Yikes. But yeah, this movie it's a weird one. It is a ride, especially the first 15 to 20 minutes are going to be really weird to describe to you what happens because
not a lot happens, but a lot it takes a lot of time for not.
But it doesn't, for me at least, feel like it dragged. It felt like it made sense why they did what they did. So yeah.
Yeah. we're discovering the journey of sentience for this tire.
Yeah.
Which is a bizarre sentence to say.
Yeah. The tire rolls around for a bit before coming across a bottle, like an empty bottle of water. After some testing the waters, if you will, he crushes the bottle and rolls on. They then come across... what does that say?
Is that a beer bottle?
Not yet. No,
it's a can.
Yeah, no, not yet. They come across and squish, is what I wrote here, a scorpion.
That's right.
Then they find a beer bottle, and they can't break it by rolling over it. So they start to shake and rumble before shattering the bottle with its psychokinetic powers. Because, we didn't mention that yet. Not only is this a killer tire, this is a psychokinetic killer tire.
Yeah, can blow things up with its mind.
Yeah. Before then rolling away, because that's how most of the scenes with the tire end, is it rolling away. We head to the audience, where the film buff Charlie corrects the boy for saying that the tire had telepathic powers, because it doesn't. It has psychokinetic powers.
It can't talk to bottles.
Yeah.
It can blow them up.
Fiona is angry that they're talking during the movie, and the woman tells the dad not to film the movie, and Charlie, the film buff, tells him that is piracy. Then we cut back to the tire, who blows up a metal can. We then watch as he rolls for a while as the sun sets before he lies down for the night.
It's tiring gaining sentience, guys, and then rolling through the desert.
Really? Tiring?
This is gonna be a time.
In the morning, he wakes up and starts back rolling. We head to the audience and their camp, where the accountant shows up, steals some money from the sleeping audience before waking everyone. But he doesn't wake the man in the wheelchair because he's already awake.
And watch it.
Yeah. Cindy asks for some coffee and toast. He doesn't answer. Once again, this accountant doesn't seem to respond to them. Pretty rude. The boy is also hungry, but his dad just keeps sleeping. We head back to the tire, who is messing with a puddle before he hears a bunny, which he blows up. The music then swells into this really cheery number. It's really, really happy. We watch him, for lack of a better term, dance.
He's dancing as he rolls through the desert
after killing this bunny.
He's ended life and is very, very enthusiastic about it.
Yeah. I initially wrote down, he rolls away seemingly very happy, which I feel like is the best way. I feel like it's like dancing, I feel like is what the emotion's supposed to get, but really, if you think about it, it's just a tire that somehow the amazing work, I'll give him credit, the amazing work of, Quentin Dupieux, he somehow made me feel emotion from a tire, which that's insane, and it works. Like, I see the joy in this tire, even though it's a tire.
Yeah. It is very well conveyed through the score and the cinematography and the choreography of the tire.
Which was like a deliberate thing, though. He specifically wanted something like a tire where it was something that didn't have ways to actually emote. Like, he brought up in that interview that I watched that the only thing I could find on this movie was an 8-minute, interview that was in French. Thankfully subtitled, because if not, I would have had no chance having anything. But he did mention that, like, he really likes the movie WALL-E, but, WALL-E has eyes and he's personified. He has a way to show emotion. He wanted to make a movie that was so grounded and had nothing. And, he did, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Also crazy that the man who made this movie just a huge fan of WALL-E. That just also seemed like oh, okay, all right, good for you.
Wild.
He then stops at a road, and we see a girl drive by. Her name is never said in the movie, but her name is Sheila, according to the credits, and she is played by Roxanne Misqueda, I believe.
probably also French.
She is also French. She is the only actress in the movie that I can tell is 100% French because she has a really thick accent. As well as
she does have a very French accent.
Yeah, I also looked at her, IMDb, and it was like all like French movies. She was also in a few of his other movies after this. But yeah.
Cool.
The tire does his rumble shake, and he's able to stop the car's engine this time. And he starts to roll towards her when he's hit by a truck. It's like a pickup truck. The truck driver, as he is known in the credits, because most people don't get names in this movie, is played by Michael Ross. Sheila is able to start her car and drive away. The tire gets up and he explodes a crow in front of him. I guess he's just angry, so he killed the first thing he saw.
Yeah, and that is fair. He did just get hit by
I don't know if it is fair, Chris. I think you gotta think about what you just said. Oh, he was a little angry, so he just killed the first thing he saw? No, Chris. I don't think that is fair.
I don't know. He's a psychokinetic tire. He doesn't know any better.
All right. You saved yourself there, but that was some questionable choices and words there. We then see the truck driver filling up his truck at the gas station. The tire shows up and blows up his head. This is our first human kill.
Before that happens, Sheila drives by and gives him the finger.
You're right. I literally skipped over that because it literally meant nothing to the plot. Yes.
And then the tire comes and blows up.
Well, no, then actually he goes to the payphone, and it doesn't work, and then he gets his head blown up. But once again, I tried to condense that a little bit, because it didn't matter and wasn't a good way to tell the story on the podcast.
I don't know.
But what I was trying to say before Chris felt the need to bring up Sheila flipping him off was that the effects were really cool whenever a head gets blown up. It's really well done, really cool.
Yeah. Pretty cool practical effects.
Yeah.
I think it is mostly practical effects.
I think it's, mostly. I mean, I'm sure there's probably some, mixing of, practical effects on a green screen to put them into the story, because that happens, but, it still is definitely, done mostly practical, which is awesome. Because practical almost always looks better. Unless you have, a Stranger Things budget. Then, you cannot do practical. But most movies, they don't have that.
Crazy. Yeah, especially not B movies.
Yeah. The B movie actually might have had that budget. That was a pretty high budget movie starring Jerry Seinfeld.
They did have Jerry Seinfeld.
It was a DreamWorks movie. That's a pretty big studio, actually. But we're not talking about that because, despite the fact that it does have a very dystopian plot, it is technically not a horror movie, so we will move on.
Yeah.
Then we get quick shots of the audience at their, alarmed reaction, because this is the first time they're seeing him kill a human. Then we cut back to the rolling down the street of the tire, and as a cop speeds past him. The tire stops at a motel that he sees Sheila's car is at. He then gets a little pervy as he rolls up to the open door and watches as Sheila undresses and showers. We then head to the audience, where the film buffs and the woman discuss the attractiveness of Sheila before discussing if the tire and Sheila are going to play harmonica.
Yes, as you do.
No, I don't think I did. I don't think that was anything I was thinking while watching this movie.
That's fair.
Then Cindy, I'm more on her side here. She yells at them to shut up, but they don't. So she and Fiona walk off in a huff. We cut back to the voyeuristic tire before Sheila closes him out. I really tried to find a fun pun for a voyeur mixed with a tire brand, but I just couldn't. I just want to let the audience know I really wanted to have a funny joke there, but I looked at a list of tire brands and just couldn't find one. I'm sorry. I failed you as a pun guy. I'm sorry. I tried, but there was nothing.
Yeah, I only know 2 brands of tires, so.
Yeah, that's fair. I only know a few, but none of them. The ones I looked up also still didn't really help.
Yeah.
The tire loudly watches TV in the room next to Sheila. Back at the audience, everyone is hungry and goes to sleep, except for the man in the wheelchair. we head to a motel room where the accountant gets, from an unknown person, he gets a call. And is it Ghostface? No, it's not. I forgot to write that joke in, so I didn't do it properly. I'm sorry. I failed the audience.
Yeah.
Let's do it. It's another take. Let's just cut that another take.
No,
I'm too lazy. And actually, apparently this person's not Ghostface. It is the Master, is what he calls him repeatedly. He keeps calling him Master.
Yeah.
And this unknown person, he gives him some instructions for tomorrow. We don't know what they are, but we do see Turkey in the room. After the call, the accountant opens his briefcase he's been carrying around, and he grabs some knives, and we fade to black and hear a turkey gobble, which, after last week, I am 100% with him killing all turkeys on sight.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. I don't think there's really any other questions about it.
Fair.
Also, I hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving this past Thursday, because this is coming out the Monday after Thanksgiving. So, yeah. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. This movie also apparently was Thanksgiving themed. They have a turkey in it. Didn't even realize.
Yeah.
That was totally... I did know that, and it was totally planned.
Yeah, definitely planned.
In the morning, the accountant brings the prepared turkey to the audience, and they devour it like wild animals.
Yeah,
except for the man.
He literally just dumps the turkey on the ground from a bag.
And then they just all go crazy.
Tear it to pieces.
Except for the man in the wheelchair, who literally is the one who calls them animals.
It's true.
Fair.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
And he does not eat any of it, though.
Oh.
Back in the motel, the cleaning lady, Martina, who is played by Tara O'Brien, who was also this movie's production coordinator.
Huh. Nice.
Yeah, she gets in to clean the tire's room, and she finds it in the shower and thinks it's like a prank or something, so she throws him outside. He gets up and goes back in, closing the door, as Zach watches on. Zach is played by Remy Thorne. He goes to tell, I think it's his dad. It's never quite said.
Yeah,
I think it's his dad.
Pretty sure it's his dad.
Yeah,
who's a jerk, and also the motel manager.
Yeah. The character's name is Mr. Hughes, and he's played by David Bow, who was in Python alongside Horror Boy alumni's the legendary Robert Englund and the idiot Jenny McCarthy. Oh, did I say that? Sorry. Moving on. Mr. Hughes doesn't believe Zach about the living tire because,
why would you?
And he sends him to pick him up a pizza with double toppings. We then head to the tire, watching a nature documentary next to the headless corpse of Martina. But then the tire does catch a glance out the window of Sheila, so he follows her to the pool, and he stares at her some more because he's a little creep. We head to Zach, who is leaving the pizza shop on his bike. He rides past a hitchhiker, who is played by co-composer Gaspard Auge, I believe is how it was pronounced. And it's a really weird scene where I guess he wanted the kid on the bike to pick him up. It's weird because he seems like mad when he passes him. It's that classic silly comedy, which for the most part I feel like this movie actually does a really good job at. But this one I was like, wait, what? Why? Okay, whatever. We just want we wanted the other composers to be in the movie, I guess.
Yeah.
And he stops though on his bike because he sees the dead crow from earlier. Crow. Yeah, and he takes like pieces of the carcass and puts it on Mr. Hughes' pizza as his double toppings. Ooh.
Oh, mischievous.
Yeah, that's a mischievous little Zach. Bad Zach. Back at the pool, the tire rolls himself into it and sinks to the bottom. We then head to the audience, who are all starting with the boy. Everyone but the man in the wheelchair starts to painfully react to the poisoned turkey they had eaten. Scene goes on for longer than that, but that's the gist of it. Like that's just like it's just them reacting to the poison turkey.
Yeah.
Back at the motel, Zach discovers Martina's corpse. We then head inside the diner with Sheila as she sees the cops show up. And then she like leaves the diner through like weirdly broken doors because once again, silly just for the sake of silly sometimes. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. For me, those moments don't really land. Like I said in the beginning, you know, with the, I think the whole principle of, you know, what was this?
Random equals funny.
Yeah, no, I mean that, but like, what was the line from the movie? The no reason. The whole no reason thing. I'm fine with that for like the general like the plot thought. Like, why is this movie happening? I don't need.
Yeah, why is there a sentient tire?
That's fair. Why is there like a weird conspiracy involved with it that we're going to get to and already have started seeing with this whole accountant and the master? Like, you're right. You don't have to tell me any of that. But you don't have to do things that literally make no sense at all, even in the world you've built. That's just silly for the sake of silly, and I don't need that. Lieutenant Chad, Mr. Hughes, and Zach are all out by the pool. Zach brings up the living tire theory again. And Mr. Hughes will still have none of it and gets like really mad and kind of aggressive with his kid. I guess his kid, maybe. And tells Zach to get the tire out of the pool. Lieutenant Chad asks Mr. Hughes if it's strange that he can't see the air, which is a callback to one of the things he said earlier, which at this point I really liked that. Like when he brought that out, like that got me, like, because I thought that opening speech was kind of like, okay, it's dragging, it's silly. But then, like, when they brought it back, I was like, okay, all right, movie. And then Mr. Hughes asks why he asked him about that, and he says, that's it, no reason. And that got me. I was like, all right, I respect the no reason joke now for that. Now, just stop with the really weird stuff for no point.
They won't.
I know. I know they won't. Oh, I know. Zach still pushes his living tire theory, so Mr. Hughes sends him away and then throws the tire after him in anger. Lieutenant Chad starts asking Mr. Hughes some questions about Martina. Excuse me. Before an alarm goes off, which is letting him know that it's been 6 hours and that the poison would have killed the spectators. So Lieutenant Chad thanks a very confused Mr. Hughes and leaves. He's like, all right, we're good. Thank you for being here. And it's that point in the movie where you go like, wait, what? What's going on? What?
Yeah.
And spoiler, there are no real answers because, you know, it's happening for no reason, guys. But this is no reason that I respect. Like, it was just so like, wait, what? Wait, what? Okay, what? Well, there's a weird conspiracy thing where Lieutenant Chad's involved. Okay, I'm in. You have me. We then head to all the dead audience and the still alive man in the wheelchair, confirming that they have been killed by the poison. Before we head back to Lieutenant Chad, who's telling all the other cops that they can go home. And now I will do the second time in the movie where I will give you a list of actors and who they are and all that. Because, once again, there's 4 new characters in this scene. So let's talk about the cops in the scene. We have Xavier, who is played by Thomas F. Duffy of Independence Day and The Lost World Jurassic Park. So he's got some big movies on his credits and also Rubber.
3 huge movies.
Yeah. Then we have Doug, who is played by James Park, who was in a lot of big movies. He was in a lot of Tarantino's movies. Like Kill Bill was one I remember seeing, Hateful Eight. But it's that time of the podcast, a second time, it doesn't only happen twice, where I get to tell you about this man's time on the TV show Buffy. Woo! It's Buffy time! Buffy time! Buffy time! Because that's right, he was in the Season 2 episode Bad Eggs of Buffy as Tector Gorch, who was one half of a duo of cowboy vampire brothers. Yeah, they're weird characters. He's all right. His brother gets to return. He doesn't because he dies in that episode. Spoiler. Oops. Should have watched it. That season came out in 98.
Spoiling all these Buffy episodes I'll never watch.
I know. Really should. It's a great show. I know you won't, but it's a really great show. Then we have Eric, who is played by Blake Robinson of a lot of TV work mostly his most substantial role was on Oz. He was in like 13 episodes of the HBO show Oz. And lastly, we have Denise, who is played by Courtney K. Taylor and is most predominantly a voice actress and shows such as American Dad and OKKO Let's Be Heroes.
So, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, she's mostly a voice actress. So now we'll talk about what actually happened in that scene. All these characters will be in this scene. Some of them have lines, some of them don't. Lieutenant Chad says to go back to their real lives. Eric says this is real life, and Lieutenant Chad points out that he is carrying a stuffed alligator. And see, obviously we're not in real life. Which, I'll be honest, is one of the few times of weird, just for the sake of weird, that I didn't actually hate. I was like, oh, wait, what? That one got me because it was so off the wall. I was like, wait, there's an alligator here. What's going on? I don't know.
Yeah.
I admit that it's hypocritical. I should hate this scene too, but I didn't. Chad tells Denise to shoot him to prove that it's all fake. When she won't, he tells Doug to, and Doug does. He shoots him and then shoots him again. And Lieutenant Chad is bleeding, but he is seemingly fine. So Denise, brings up, well, what about the dead Martina? So Chad tells her to, go check the body bag. And she does, and finds a, cold, headless corpse. He seems really kind of confused by this, but then the accountant walks up to tell him how one of the spectators didn't eat the turkey, and they have to go on. So, Lieutenant Chad, he says, I've made a mistake, and tells them all, forget what I just said. And he goes off to talk to Mr. Hughes again. Lieutenant Chad is still bleeding in this scene, because Mr. Hughes brings it up, and he starts asking Mr. Hughes questions about Martina, while the tire gets up, and he starts shaking and exploding. And what do you think he does? That's right, he explodes someone's head. That's right, he explodes Mr. Hughes' head. Woo! Woo! And then rolls away, because that's what he does. He's in a scene, he blows something up, and he rolls away. That is his character. And in the movie, it's really cool, and I really love it. But reading it, it is kind of getting repetitive, and it's a weird thing to have to talk about it in a, describing you scene for scene what happened. This movie does not really hold up for that. I am realizing that as we cover this movie.
It is mostly a movie where a tire rolls around and blows people's heads up.
Yeah, pretty much.
And wacky hijinks ensue in between scenes.
Then after he blows up the head, Lieutenant Chad takes out what seems like his script and very unenthusiastically says, "Oh God, the kid was right. The killer is a tire." I really like that scene. We then see the tire roll up to a mirror and have some reflective flashbacks to previous scenes in the movie, and it ends with a shot of him as a tire on a car, before all this happened. Which I thought that was, once again, really kind of I didn't see that coming, but I should have, because it's a tire. Before Zach comes up and kind of knocks him out of it by confronting him for killing Martina. And he wants him to talk, but the tire doesn't say anything, and guess what he does?
Because it is a tire.
Yeah, what do you think he does, though? The scene's about to end, what did the tire do?
He rolls away.
He rolls away, that's right.
But not before Zach throws a can of Mountain something at him. Because it's not Mountain Dew.
So he's gone. We head back to the motel where Lieutenant Chad shows the other cops a tire as kind of a reference to what their suspect is.
Yeah, he's removing a tire from another car so that he can go, this is what our suspect looks like.
Then all the cops kind of ask different questions. I'm not going to read off each question they have, but they're all pretty funny. It's a...
most notable one is, oh, what brand is it?
Yeah.
And he goes, probably unbranded.
Yeah.
Because, they couldn't afford the... And the movie is very, tongue-in-cheek about, we couldn't afford the tire brand.
Yeah. But Zach ends up running up to tell them where the tire went. So, now they have a lead. So they head off. And then we head to where the audience used to be. And now just the man in a wheelchair is, who is joined by the accountant with a room service cart with multiple enticing options. I didn't write down each description of food items because I don't feel like it's that important. The last one is chocolate eclairs for dessert. I remember that. That's quick, and I can remember that.
The man in the wheelchair rejects them all, saying that he's not hungry.
Yep. And he just wants to watch the ending of the movie, but he's like, there is no ending though. He's like, well, I want to see this cool scene right now. It's happening. It's a cool chase scene. So we head back to that cool chase scene now. And the tire is rolling down the street because he's a tire and he rolls. And there's a cop car chasing him. And in that cop car, we have Eric from earlier and a new cop, Luke. And they stop in the road as the chase kind of ends for a second here. Luke is played by Pete DeCecco, I believe. Could be wrong. Who knows? Who's a stunt driver. That's like his thing. He's not really an actor. He's more of a stunt driver. Specifically, one of the things he was credited on is this movie as the stunt driver as well. I believe he is also the guy who drives crashing into the things at the beginning of the movie, which you wouldn't think you'd need a stunt driver for, but I guess technically you still did because it is technically a stunt. I just feel like crashing into those chairs at like 2 miles an hour doesn't really need a stunt driver, but I guess it did.
Hey, when you got to swerve like that...
I guess it's true. The swerving was actually like really intricate, so fair.
It's very smooth and controlled.
We cut back to... Sorry, we don't cut back to... We're just already here. We cut back from me saying who he is to the scene that's actually happening. And the tire starts shaking and blows up Luke's head. Thank you for being in the movie. Bye.
Yep.
And then this is the point where I normally would say, and he rolls away, but he doesn't because we cut away. Because we cut back to the man in the wheelchair and the accountant. And the accountant is...
eating all the food.
Yeah, he's eating all the food
and
telling this really weird story about how he killed his own brother. There's a lot more details to it, but that's the gist. He killed his own brother.
Is some of what happens, yeah.
When he was a
very
kid.
Bizarre scene that, he's just eating poison.
Yeah, then he starts reacting to said poison food. And it goes on for probably a tad bit too long, personally. But it's still, for the most part, okay. Like, it doesn't quite get, like, the point where I'm really angry at how long it's going. But it is, might be a little too much of this man screaming in pain. Before he does eventually
in case he didn't
die.
Pick that up.
Yeah. We then follow the tire rolling until he finds a tire burning, like a tire fire kind of deal.
Yeah. They're burning old tires.
Yep. And, he must be angry about it because we now jump to 3 days later and we see a bunch of shots of the over 10 people the tire has killed in the past 3 days. Once again, a lot of cool just gore effects on the ground. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool.
We then see Denise and Doug, who are like looking outside a house. Looks like there's a dead body outside the house, and then they kind of look inside the house, and they find the tire, who's watching NASCAR in the house, which I like that. Feels like what he should be watching.
Yeah. He's gone on a spree and is now watching NASCAR casually in somebody else's house.
Yeah. There's a dead body behind him of the person who owned the house. Like, he doesn't care.
Yeah. He is a tire.
He is a tire. We then go to Lieutenant Chad and Xavier, who are playing chess.
On the hood of a car.
It's silly, guys. Before they get the call from Doug, who is calling in for backup because they found the tire. We then head to their plan, which is a mannequin dressed up to look like Sheila, rigged with explosives. They have Sheila mic'd up to try and trick the tire. This scene is like probably 5 minutes or so, but I'm gonna probably tell you about it in about two sentences because that's kind of what this scene. It's a very dialogue-heavy scene that's not that important. The dialogue that's said specifically, but she is reading off a script of things to say to try to convince the tire to come out, and the script she is given is so bad that she stops reading it. She's like, "This is terrible."
Who wrote this garbage?
Yeah.
Chad or
Lieutenant
Chad?
Chad, yeah.
Chad?
Yeah, Lieutenant Chad.
It's like, never mind that. I'll read it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he takes over for a bit, and it's still just as terrible. But they have a realization that Sheila probably should take back over because now it's a man's voice
Guy's not
coming out of
buying
this, and that might not trick the tire right. So
He might be a tire, but he's a smart tire.
yeah, and yeah. So their plan though here is they want him to blow off the mannequin's head to trigger the dynamite. Then they get.
I don't know how that would happen, but
yeah,
apparently they rigged that to work.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
So yeah, she takes back over. She starts talking some more before they get startled by a bang outside. What is it? Well, it's the man in the wheelchair who thinks this scene is confusing.
Yeah.
I don't like what's happening here. He doesn't understand why now that they've lured the tire out. Why don't they just kill him with a flamethrower or something cool like that?
Or a bazooka.
Yeah, bazooka is one thing. He says a lot of things. But yeah, Lieutenant Chad says, well, the plan was for the tire to, blow himself up. But they'll try to speed it up for him, because, the man in the wheelchair is getting a little flustered. I think it's Xavier is the driver in this scene. He's like, well, if you would have eaten the turkey, this would all be over. Which, that was, true. It would have been over. I believe even, the best part is, even the man in the wheelchair is like, oh, yeah, fair. You're right, if I was dead, this part wouldn't have to happen. Fair enough.
Yeah. Technically speaking, yeah.
Then they go back to their plan, and the tire, well, he does it. He blows up the mannequin's head, and it doesn't trigger the dynamite.
Do anything.
No. This kind of just pisses off Lieutenant Chad, so he grabs his, shotgun, and he just goes inside. The man in the wheelchair is yelling at him, hey, you can't do this. You promised me a cool ending with explosions. And Chad is done, and he does not care. So he blows up the tire. Blows up, but he shoots the tire. It's now blown out. He brings out the blown out tire and just throws it at the man in the wheelchair's feet. We're done.
Yep.
So then the movie ends, right? No. Because out comes a tricycle. Because that's right. He's been reincarnated as a tricycle.
Yeah, because why not?
Because no reason.
No reason.
And he comes out. He notices the man in the wheelchair, and the man in the wheelchair is like, "Hey, whoa! I'm not even in this movie. I'm just here to watch." But it's not good enough for the tire, so the tire blows him up. Not just his head this time.
Trike.
Oh, sorry, the trike. Well, he's still the tire inside. His heart is the tire. But you're right. Yes, the tricycle blows him up. Full on blows him up. Not just his head. The whole wheelchair. Everything is just exploded.
He's grown stronger through reincarnation as a tricycle.
And then, can you guess what the trike does at the end of this scene?
He trikes away.
He still rolls. He still has wheels. He's still.
Yeah, I guess that is true. Yeah, he's still rolling.
Rides away if you want.
Although there's no one riding him, he does it. He rolls.
He rolls away. Then we have a scene where the cops drop off Sheila at her car, and she's about to leave when the trike rides up next to her, and he stops, but then continues past her. He's all done with her. He doesn't need to do this. We follow the trike for a while as it rides past some other tires, and they join him, and they follow him all the way to Hollywood, right in front of the Hollywood sign. That's where our movie ends.
Yeah.
We then get our picture credits that reveal that the tire's, I believe, actor is named Robert, is how it's supposed to be.
Robert.
But then if you go to IMDb, it says that the character's name is Robert and that the tire was actually played by Goodyear. So, I don't know. Which I think that's a really funny joke. I hope that's in the actual, I'll be honest, I didn't watch the non-picture credits, so maybe it was there that it said, Robert played by Goodyear, because that's hilarious if that was the case. And then, technically, the movie doesn't quite end, because we go to the credits, and over the credits we have the same, opening monologue from earlier, but the big reveal at the end is that the audience wasn't there when he was saying this, so was he saying this to us? I guess, is what the reveal is supposed to mean. Or, there is no explanation, because, no reason.
Right.
But yeah, this movie it's art. It is beautifully shot. It is. It has a weird sense of humor that I really do enjoy. For the most part, there are some times where they really try to be silly and it doesn't work for me. But then there's like just like the deadpan humor of like when they're taking the insanity seriously that works so well as great comedy. Like this movie is art. I said, at the 15-minute mark, I was like, I don't know if I love this movie or I hate this movie. I still don't think I would go as far as say I love this movie after watching the whole movie, but I definitely do fall under the this is really good and I really enjoy it camp. Not that I hate it camp. But yeah, I wish there wasn't so much of no reason just for the sake of no reason. Random doesn't equal funny all the time, so maybe don't do it for just doing its sake. But other than that, I really like this movie. Really good. I'm really happy we watched it for Horror Boys.
Yeah, I gotta say I agree. Pretty much wholeheartedly. Yeah, this one I did not expect to like this movie nearly as much as I did. I had watched part of this movie, like back when it first came out, because a lot of YouTubers had covered it previously, and I was like, "This sounds so absurd. I have to watch it." And I got through like maybe the first 5 minutes. I was like, "This is bizarre." And so glad that I was forced to watch it because the movie as a whole is such a wild ride. And yeah, the score and the cinematography in this movie are way better than they have any right being for what this movie is. But it is art as a whole. Yeah, some of the scenes don't quite hit the way they want it to. But I would say as a whole, it does a pretty good job of what it is trying to do. And if you have a little bit of an out there sense of humor and can appreciate good cinematography, then this might be a movie you'd enjoy. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're not quite out of this, no franchise era we're going through currently. We got a couple more weeks of that. But, something kind of special is happening next week, kind of, not really. But next week, because, this episode, it did come out November 28th is when you're listening to this, if you listen to it the day it came out, which means next week, this is December 5th. And I feel like there might be something important that happens in December. Hanukkah? No, we're not watching that. Yeah. There's not really a lot of Hanukkah Christmas. Hanukkah.
Crazy Nights, what?
Adam Sandler cartoon. Yeah. Yeah, no, there's not a lot of like horror Hanukkah movies, but also I don't know when Hanukkah even lands this year. But that's not the point. The point is it's December, so we're going to be covering 4 Christmas movies over the next 4 weeks because there are 4 weeks in December this year, or 4 Mondays in December. One of them will technically come out the day after Christmas. Sorry, but we're still going to cover it. But yeah, so next week is the start of our little mini Christmas arc we're going to be doing here. And we're going to be starting with a movie that I really want to cover. There are movies that we probably should cover before this because there are like legendary, horror Christmas movies. One of which we will be covering the week after this, like a really important one we've mentioned on here before. But we're not covering that yet because next week I just wanted to cover this. We are going to be talking about the movie Santa's Sleigh. And it's I think that's what it's called. I hope now we gotta do that cool thing where I look it up as I'm talking, try to make it look like I'm yeah, Santa's Sleigh. It's starring Bill Goldberg as an evil Santa Claus. Bill Goldberg is a professional wrestler, and that's why we're watching this movie. That's really it. It's a horror Christmas comedy starring a pro wrestler, so we're watching it. I look forward to it. I'm sure Chris won't, but I'm looking forward to this. So we will see you next week for Santa's Sleigh. Before we get to the goodbyes, we have to tell you to hey, support us. You on a podcast app, 5-star review if you could. I don't know. I mean, it'd be cool if you did. If you're on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell. All those crappy things I have to say because we're trying to be internet content creators. Yeah. Also, if you want to support us directly, patreon.com/horrorbois. Horror Bois. You can get this podcast early, as well as other rewards we'll do literally only for you if you got onto those reward tiers. Right. Make us do more work. Please? I mean, and pay us? That'd be cool. Nice. But yeah, I've been Austin, and I've been joined by Chris, and we will be back next week. Bye-bye!
Bye-bye!